the specialty is a king at sales, and he works with Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins. Amazing guys. I've been in their events and I have great respect for them. And everybody that attract them, the people that attract that get attracted to Dean and Tony, they're just amazing people. And Lewis has been working with them in their sales team, and he's been crushing it. And I've been closely watching him share all the successes and stuff. So I'm really proud to have Lewis in my connections and closely work with him. So yeah, Lewis, welcome to the show. This call is being live streamed into my Facebook group. We've got about 600 plus people in the Facebook group. And yeah, what are we covering today, Lewis? And welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Ganesh. Well, thank you for everybody here on the Zoom. I see, a handful of people, but also thank you for everybody tuning on the live stream. And really today is going to be all about sales mastery, but from the component of some of the things that you wouldn't expect when you think about sales, right? A lot of times, what do people say about sales? It's pushy, it's, icky, or, rubs people the wrong way. And of course that happens, right? It's something that could happen, but ultimately the question becomes, how can you do it at the highest levels? How can you do it to where, the top 1%, top 10% of people who do sales, how to do it like them, right? And so there's some key components here, speaking about clarity on what not to do, right? Looking at how sales doesn't have to be hard closing, right? It's about showing up as a leader, showing up as someone who really wants to understand, who really wants to dive deeper. And we have somebody here. Let's go ahead and mute yourselves if you are in the Zoom. Thank you so much. And then the other thing that we'll cover here is confidence and where it stems from, because a lot of people want to have confidence, and so they overly focus on how do I be more confident, whereas really it's more about trusting yourself, trusting your process. So that's the second thing we'll get into. And then the third and final thing is really all about how to have more fun in sales. I mean, that concept alone, right? You might think like, what are you talking about, Luis? Sales is hard. Sales is again, a dynamic that is difficult for people. But there are certain ways where once you really hit that pinnacle, that's kind of that top 1%. Once you hit that pinnacle, you're gonna get great at sales because you're gonna love the game. You're going to love serving and helping people, but we'll get into it. I mean, it's really about how to take these small tweaks to get the biggest results. So those are the three things we'll cover: clarity, confidence, how to have more fun in sales. But anything you want to add, Ganesh? I mean, anything you want to share before we dive in?
No, that's pretty much the agenda, I guess. I mean, that's the core of the things that people struggle with. Like first of all, when you say sales call, people there's a bit of a fear. Oh, what's going to happen? I'm going to make that offer, and then I'm going to ask for money. There is a bit of a the fun goes away as soon as it comes to sales, usually, right? So
I
adding that
hear
fun
you.
element, having that structure and confidence in the process, I think that's very important. I think that's perfect.
That's right, brother.
Yeah.
And so for those of you here
Sorry, one
in,
housekeeping. Feel
yeah,
free to ask any questions in case you want
yeah.
to jump in. But then there is a dedicated Q&A session right at the end. This is going to be about 50 minutes or so. So yeah, we can go dive right in.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say is we have a lot of great people here. Sam, Bo, Avni, all you guys here in the room, please feel free to drop any questions you may have in the chat box here on Zoom. And then Ganesh, not sure if you have an eye over on the Facebook group, but for those of you in the Facebook group, please, ask any questions. Actually, go ahead and drop any sort of questions, concerns you have around sales. And to Ganesh's point, we can cover those, in a second here. But also, if it's pertinent to some of the topics I'm covering, I can add it to the mix. So let's talk about that first piece, right? Clarity on what not to do. How can you make sure that when you are selling, it's not hard closing or being pushy or like rubbing somebody the wrong way, right? Well, as I mentioned, if you're taking notes, that's all about showing up with leadership. It's showing up as a leader and really seeking to understand. Think about the world's greatest leaders, right? In politics and business, right? Even maybe people in your life. Maybe it's a grandmother, maybe it's a father figure. Think about these leaders and then think about how do they show up? Because the great leaders are not there to kind of push their agenda on the other person. Now, some leaders do that, right? That's what is called a tyrannical leader. So, those are not the greatest leaders. The greatest leaders, the greatest people who do sales are going to be those that show up to understand and not to be understood. What that means, I'll give you an example. Just right now, I got off a call. And the lady was a little bit wishy-washy. She was like, "Well, yeah, I think it would be a good idea to start my own business." And so as a leader, I need to dig deeper into that. Okay, well, why though? Why not just kind of go do something else? Why don't you, go hang out with your husband? And she's from Canada, right? So go hang out in Toronto and just have a good time. That's called the devil's advocate frame. Because a lot of times what salespeople will try to do is they'll try to push and say, "Oh no, I think you should do this. I think you should do that. I think it's a great idea." Because what the salespeople want the sale, obviously. But the biggest difference on what not to do is going to be don't focus too much on what you want and what you need. Be the leader and show up for them. In this situation with the lady, guess what I did? I stepped into that devil's advocate frame, in other words, the contrarian frame. And I said, well, I mean, you don't have to create a program online. Why don't you just kind of go hang out? What does that do? It creates positive tension and it's almost like that pull back. It's that pull away, right? Well, let's say agency work. Well, I hear you, Mr. Robbins, but I mean, you don't have to grow your business right now. Like, why don't you just kind of keep doing what you're doing? Why are you even looking for help with your marketing? I'm curious. What does that do now? It gets them thinking like, oh, that's right. Well, the reason why I want to do it is because this, and that. So whenever you're having trouble having somebody open up, guess what? Step into some of these kind of different frames of mind, really seek to understand them, really go deeper. And that will revolve around questions and asking these type of questions, right? That's all we're doing. Really, when you get into sales and the best salespeople, they're really great at storytelling and asking questions, right? They're not there to push, they're not there to pitch, they're there to see, they're there to understand. And so, what I'll do real quick, just to drive this point home, is going to be let me share this right here. So, Ganesh, can you see my screen here, brother? Perfect. So let me turn my camera off real quick so we can pay attention to this. This is called the emotional guidance scale. And the reason why this is very important is because this is showing the energies that people will feel from you in terms of how you're showing up. I'm going to give you an example. If you look at the downward spiral effect in this emotional scale, here's what a lot of people who are not really good at sales, here's what they do. This is what you shouldn't do, right? They get frustrated. Oh my goodness, this person, like, why aren't they buying? Like, why did they show up on the call if they're not serious, right? And then they get impatient. And then they start asking, well, I mean, are you like interested or not? Or yeah, they start to push. And so what happens? If they don't get the sale, they get disappointed. And then they start to show up with a little bit of doubt or with a little bit of worry of like, oh man, this next sales call, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to close them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring in money. And then they start to blame. Well, the economy's not that good. This niche is not that good. These doctors or these, whoever you're working with. And then what happens? They get discouraged. Man, I don't know if this selling thing, man, like maybe I should just hire somebody. or maybe I'm not that good at sales. And then either they get angry at the situation or they go down into these deeper levels of emotion. Obviously, you don't want to be down here, right? You don't want to be walking around, feeling sad and depressed and like a victim. You don't want to, feel powerless. But this is the cycle, guys. This is what happens to people if you're not aware that what not to do is to don't focus so much on what you want and your agenda. I want to close this guy. I want to get his money. No, and I know a lot of people are actually not that way, but what happens is when you get into a stressed state, you start to operate from these lower levels, right? You start to operate from that level of like, well, I'm worried that he's not going to close, so let me push him. Let me like challenge him a little bit more. So, what should you be doing? To step up as a leader, if you're not feeling so good, if you've had like a bad month, a bad week, whatever, write this down. The starting point is always looking at how can I accept the situation? How can I be content? Not in a way where you give up, but how can I just be content with the situation and accept and say it is what it is. Write that down. It is what it is. And again, the key here is to not say that from a defeatist attitude of like, oh, it is what it is. I suck, or oh, this month sucks. No, it's from the frame of starting to make a positive change. And this is the upward spiral in the emotional scale. So here's what that looks like. If you really want to get great at sales, if you really want to be a leader, you say, hey, let's take ownership. Let's be honest. I haven't been that good this month. That's okay. It's not okay in terms of the results, but it's okay because I can do something about it. So you accept the situation. And then what happens? You're like, all right, well, let's figure it out. I think I could close at least one person. Let's kind of pick up our skills. Let's watch YouTube videos on sales. Let's hire a one-to-one sales coach. Let's, attend a conference. There's so many things you can do. And what does that do? That causes you to be optimistic. Oh, wait, actually, there's a chance. Now the energy's moving up, right? There's a chance. And let's say you get on a sales call and you realize, wait, that call went pretty good. I enjoyed that conversation. So now you start to believe. Write that down. Belief is so powerful. Let me share a quick quote from Conor McGregor. If you guys follow fighting or UFC, this is something that he talks about. So it says somebody asked him in an interview, hey, I mean, you're now a world champion with over like a dozen endorsements, like you're very famous. Did you ever imagine reaching this point? And he says, it might sound a little crazy sometimes, a little arrogant or cocky, but I always believed. I always believed that I was going to make it. And maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's the reason why I'm here. He was saying, I always believed, even though I was aware that, the circumstances weren't the best, even though my situation wasn't the best, even though the odds weren't in my favor sometimes, he said, in the bottom of my heart, I had faith, I had belief that something good would happen. I just had to keep going. So, guess what happens if you start to believe? I'm getting chills thinking about this. Now you say, well, shoot, let's show up differently today. Let's show up differently this week. Let's be a little bit more enthusiastic on our calls. Let's try to connect with this individual. Let's really get curious about them. It's about them. Get curious about them, understand them, learn what do they need. And then this is the higher levels where when you're really that's the top 1%. When you're really great at sales, you're so passionate about connecting with others and you're living in the space of gratitude. Oh my goodness, I get to get on this phone call. I get to talk to this person. I get to learn about what's going on. You appreciate it. You love it. You literally enjoy it. So obviously that is kind of skipping ahead to my other point, which was in regards to how to enjoy sales. But do you guys see what we're talking about here? Right. So drop a one in the chat. I know some of you are driving, things like that, but drop the number one in the chat box or on Facebook if you are starting to understand the power of showing up as a leader. right? The power of, hey, you can do sales differently. You can get better sales results if the way you show up is different. If you start to spiral up instead of spiraling down, right? So thank you guys. I see you there. Appreciate that. So now what's next? The next component here is looking at confidence and how if you really want to be more confident when it comes to sales, you need to just focus less on being more confident and showing up enthusiastic and focus more on structure. Write that word down, structure and frameworks. Because look, confidence comes from trusting your sales structure. The end result is confidence. Because when you can show up and you're trusting yourself, you're relaxed, and you have this inner knowing that, hey, I have a sales structure that I can follow. It doesn't have to be like a script word for word, but you have an idea of like, hey, first let's get to know them. Then let's find out what's going on. What are some of the challenges? But then also look at what do they want to do? What's their vision? Write these down. I hope you're right? And then the other one is what's driving you to want to get help now? What's the timeline? The why now? And if you want to go deeper and really get good at this, you have something in your structure that actually challenges them to think deeper and say, well, if you don't do anything though, like what would happen? I mean, would anything kind of would you miss out on anything? Would there be any consequences or not really? That is the power of listening and understanding them deeper because that will then create what? Internal pressure. Not external pressure from the sales rep saying, "Hey, you ready to go? Hey, like, hey, you want to take care of this deal?" No, it's internal pressure inside of them thinking, "Holy shit, that's right. If I don't do something, what's going to happen? My wife's on me about growing my business. My bank account is drained, whatever, right?" You then get to the reality of their situation. So if you have these pieces in place, if you have this structure, guess what you can do? You not that you could just lay back and relax, but you can show up in a manner that's, hey, I know what I'm doing because I'm following my process. I'm curious about coming back to the first point about the clarity and showing up as a leader. I'm showing up to clarify their situation. So think about it. If you're showing up with a structure that you can follow, and if you're showing up knowing, hey, I'm here to just learn about this person, I'm just curious, I want to get clarity on the situation, then guess what? That's going to cause this inner sense of confidence to know that whatever happens, you can trust the structure. You can trust yourself and your intentions. And then depending on what you believe, I'll say, I believe God, right? So it's like, I believe that God has guided me to this situation to help this person. That person was guided to me through a higher power because something good is going to happen. That's a belief. Do you guys remember that upward spiral? One of those was belief. It was a higher level frequency, higher level of energy. Well, if you show up believing that, the way you're going to interact with others is going to be way more powerful. They're going to feel you, right? They're going to feel you being present. They're going to feel you that you really care. That's the top 1%. They actually care. They're not just there to collect the paycheck or, okay, next call, next call, next call. Does it happen sometimes? Of course. But um, the most influential people, the leaders, they actually do care. So that's the thing is the end result is confidence. So what is the starting pieces? The starting pieces is you need to have your sales structure. And just to do a high level recap, typically the calls start with a little warm introduction. Hey, Ganesh, it's Luis here. How are you? How's it going? Hey, doing well. Okay. Make it simple. Don't talk about what's the weather like over there and did you watch the game last night? No, that's not actually connecting. That's just high level like BS nobody really cares about. Just get into it. Gotcha, man. Well, hey, do you have a pen and paper somewhere to take notes on? Oh, okay. Now you're starting to ask questions. Now you're starting to take leadership of the conversation. They're most likely going to respond yes or no. Oh, no, I don't. Let me go get that. What did you just do? You influenced them to take an action. Do you see that? You literally just sold them on the idea that they need to take notes. but you did it in a way that's so casual. Okay, gotcha. Hey, so I'm excited to get going. Do you have somewhere to take notes on? No, let me go get that. Okay. Now you just started to influence them at a micro level. Let's say, yeah, yeah, of course, I'm ready. All right, awesome. Well, here's how the call will go. You can frame the call a little bit. You don't want to go too deep. You don't want to keep running and running your mouth. It's just, hey, here's how the call will go. We'll learn a little bit more about your situation, see what's working, what's not working. And if it seems that I can help you, then I'll tell you a little bit more about those services. Okay, is that fair? And notice how I ended it with a question. Hey, is that fair? It's fair enough. Yeah, of course. All right, excellent. Well, let's dive in. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on with your situation. What do you feel is maybe not working or what could be better? Now, I'm not going to run through my whole, script and structure, but do you see that if I have these memorized now, but if you have these structures in place, there's no reason why you can't show up relaxed, focused, ready to serve, ready to learn, ready to pay attention. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. Confidence comes from trusting the structure, trusting yourself, your intentions, and trusting a higher power that's, hey, something good's going to happen here. Let's believe that. Let's operate from that sense of like, let's do good in the world, right? So go ahead and drop a number 2 in the chat box there if you see that, if you understand what we're talking about. That the number 2 point here is confidence comes from your sales structure. Also, by the way, if any of you here, welcome some of the new folks. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat box. Let me know what questions you've got. But this is it. I get chills thinking about it. This is how nobody really teaches this, right? This is like that top 1% that nobody really knows. But it's because you have to experience it. You have to come from that place of inner knowing to really be able to share this. So the third and final thing, and then we'll start to open it up to questions here, is the idea of like, hey, how do you have more fun in sales? How is that even possible? How does that even cross your mind, Luis? What are you talking about? Well, here's the thing, right? What's your definition of fun? That's the whole thing as well. Like, what do you define as fun? Is fun just raving and going to parties and things like that? That's very fun to me. I do that as well. Or maybe you're what fun is for you is like going out with your family, having a good little walk in the park. That's fun as well. I mean, I have a wife, I have a son, so I get it. But here's the other thing that Ed Milet taught me. I don't know if you guys follow him. He says winning is more fun than fun is fun. Winning is more fun than fun is fun. What does that mean? That means that if you have that belief that, look, I'm here to serve, I'm here to give, but let's be honest, we're running a business. I'm here to win. I'm here to dominate. I'm here to be the best that I could be. I have competition. It's not a secret. Okay, so what can I do though to be the one that serves the most? What can I do to be the one that gives the most value? What can I do to be the one that has the most fun in this journey? Because I love to win. I love to serve. And that's fun to me. There's fun in the process, right? So that's one little kind of reframe to think about sales. It's almost like a game. What's the game, Luis? The game is very simple. The game is you showing up to learn about this person, to connect with this person. And then if you feel that you can serve them, because sometimes you just can't. Like this lady I just got off the phone with, I literally told her, hey, listen, based on where you're at right now, yeah, it doesn't seem like we're a good fit, but here's what I'll do for you. Let me send you an email, take a look at it, no rush, and then get back to me if you feel like you're actually committed to the idea of getting support. Because right now, based on your story, it seems like you're not really ready. Is that fair enough? Of course. What is she going to tell me, right? Now, here's the thing. For the people that you do feel that you can serve, okay, now you get excited. Now that's where the enthusiasm comes in. Now that's where the confidence turns into, here's how I can serve. Here's my expertise. That's also fun in sales, right? Is knowing that you have something to give, knowing that you have something to share with the world, right? If you're the one that's just a sales rep and you're not the one doing the fulfillment, that's also okay because you can have fun saying, hey, I just learned from my coach this new technique. Let me implement it. Hey, I just watched this YouTube video from Tony Robbins, from Hermosi. Let me implement it. Hey, I just read this book, the Challenger Sales Method. Let me implement some of these things. You can still have fun in sales. But really, here's the most important thing. It's not even about winning is fun. It's not about having fun implementing new things that you're doing. It's not even about the game of understanding and serving a client. The most important thing is that when you really get good at sales, you crave that next call, right? You like, oh my goodness, let's go. Like there's this feeling of energy, because here's the thing, it's almost like it's a sport. Think about it. If you love football, right? Soccer here in the United States, if you love football and you're like, oh my goodness, that last game I had was amazing. I did an assist, I hit a hat trick, whatever. Guess what? Now you're going into the next game with energy, with excitement. So that's the big thing as well, is how do you have more fun in sales? Be more intentional about sales. Say, hey, you know what? Let me build some positive momentum. Let me show up on this next call prepared with my structure, with my energy. Maybe I do some morning routine rituals like meditating, working out, reading, journaling, right? Let me be more intentional about how I'm showing up. Back to point number 1, the point about being a leader, right? So that's the thing, is when you get really good at sales, you crave that next call because you know you can help, you know you can serve. It's just about understanding these people and getting excited about helping them. That's really the game here, is getting so good that you crave the next call. And you crave it not because like, oh, I want the money, I want the sale. No. When you get so good at sales and you have fun, is because you know you're there to serve, you're there to give, you're there to really be able to connect with somebody, right? And sometimes those conversations are wonderful. The other day I just had a conversation with this lady. She came from the perspective of wanting to do something in business, but her husband was kind of holding her back. Like his mindset was very limited. She was excited. She wanted to like build her own speaking business. She wanted to build courses, but her husband was, kind of like limited mindset. He's like, no, it was mostly ego as well. He didn't really want her to be better than her, things like that. So the reason why that conversation was fun for me, because I helped her get clear on how to connect better with him, with the husband, so that it could open up the avenue for her to feel good about doing her own thing. Because she was like, yeah, I mean, one of the big concerns I have is if I get help and then this thing really kicks off and I'm successful, what's going to happen to my marriage? That's when you know that you're hitting the top pinnacle of sales, because you pause and you think ahead. Okay, if I just ignore what she just said and I go on to my next point and I say, okay, so hey, I'm ready to, share with you what I got. You got somewhere to take notes on. Ultimately, you just missed the big opportunity. So that's the example here, guys. In that situation, I said, okay, wait, hold on a second. So let's put this idea of like starting a business aside. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on with your husband. Because now what am I also doing? Not only am I building more rapport, but I'm also preventing the objection of I need to go talk to my husband, because I'm already anticipating it. I'm saying, hey, put this idea aside of like business. Like, tell me more about what's going on with that. And even in my tone of voice, it's because I care. It's because I'm curious. So my tone of voice is like, oh, okay, well, what's up with your husband? I mean, what's going on with that? No, it's like this. Oh, wait, hold on a second. You just brought up something very important. Let's put money aside. Let's put like business aside. What's really going on with your husband? If I can ask an honest question, I mean, is it like really bad? What does that do? It causes her to open up, tell me what's going on, and that's what allowed me to get clear on, hey, ma'am, if you actually, and this was a whole conversation, if you stop criticizing him, and if you actually show up and be of emotional support for him, he's going to support you. So see, it wasn't about that the husband had the ego and that he didn't want her to be successful, is that she was kind of looking down at him to begin with. But that was a whole conversation that had to happen. It didn't happen in 2 minutes. It was like a 15, 20 minute like tangent that we had to address. And she was crying. She was like, bawling her eyes out. And she was like, do you always do this? You always make people cry on your calls? And I'm like, no, I'm just here to listen. I literally told her that. I'm here to listen. I'm here to understand. Now, that's the big thing. If we take a step back, what do we talk about today? Is these small little tweaks that get you the biggest results, right? It's the small little tweaks. Show up prepared, show up different, lean on your structure. Pay attention to your tone of voice. Really listen for what the person is saying and pause. Say, hey, hold on a second. You just said something important, right? These little things, they're not massive, earth shattering concepts, but that's what I was saying. And the first thing, it's clarity. Clarity on what not to do, right? You don't have to be a hard closer. You just have to show up as a leader. The second thing was confidence comes from your structure. If you have that structure, if you trust yourself, if you trust the structure, you're going to get great results. And the third thing is how to have more fun in sales. That stems from building momentum, being more intentional about how you show up, and really enjoying these conversations and having that be a win. Because as Ed Milet says, winning is more fun than fun is fun. So with that said, drop a 3 in the chat box here if this all makes sense. Let me know if you're enjoying this. Go ahead and drop a 3 in the chat box there for me. But at this point, we can take it anywhere. Ganesh, I'm sure you might have a few questions as well. Sam, Will, Bo, Avni, all you folks here. Ryan, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. Please feel free to in the Facebook group as well. Let me know, let Ganesh know either now or whenever you get the chance. What was your biggest takeaway? What questions do you have? Or how can we serve you from here? Anything else?
Hey, that was awesome, man. Brilliant. By the way, for everybody, feel free to come on camera if you have a question. Feel free to just ask Liz directly. I know you've been on sales calls, you've had objections, you've closed sales, but there's been more than one case where you felt, I did everything that I could, but it didn't go well. They didn't sign up for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So bring those cases in. This is your time to get answers. So
Yeah.
by the time people are thinking about their questions, I have a question, Luis.
Sure.
Um, so it's all about listening, right? So
Mhm.
let's say you are listening for those minute details
Yeah.
and giving as much value and being in that moment, but what if the prospect is on and on about the why they cannot do what they are supposed to be doing, or they are in their own journey, they're in their own story, they're what do you
Yeah.
do then? I mean, it's a repeat sort of a thing. The conversation is going nowhere.
Mm.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, there's many approaches. The first thing I'll share is around the mindset in terms of what thoughts are going in your head if that is happening. So the biggest thing you got to remember is that people who feel judged are not going to buy. People who feel rushed are not going to buy. Or if they buy, they're just going to refund anyways, right? That's called buyer's remorse. So that's the first thing I always think back to is like, okay, gosh, there's been days where I'm on a call and it's late and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, right? But also I have to step up as that leader and say, okay, let's face the fire, right? Let's listen, let's understand, let's really try to figure this out. Because it's very easy for me to sit there and judge, right? Or criticize, but that's not going to get us anywhere. So what I'll do then in terms of the tactic, so first the mindset, be clear that you're not judging, be clear that you're not criticizing, be clear that you can show up as a leader for them in that moment, even if you're tired, even if you're, having a bad day, the way you show up is extremely important. So assuming that's taken care of, then the thing that you could do is there's two things. Number one is you can call it out, or number two is you can ask them what would the consequences be if nothing changes. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is you can say, "Hey, John, can I ask you an honest question?" Yeah, what's up? So I feel like you're kind of going in circles. You're kind of looping. I mean, have you noticed that? Is that something that you've kind of seen as a pattern in your life, in your business? That's very important because if they're not aware of it, okay, that's a big red flag, right? Like that's something they just need to take care of first. That may not be something you can help them with. But in the case where they're like, yeah, honestly, that's something I do a lot. Okay, listen, here's what I could do for you on top of helping you with your marketing, on top of helping you with the funnels. When you can sit down with someone and just connect on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, what that helps you to do is to stop looping and doing the same things that are not yielding the results that you want. Would you agree with that? Right? So now you got them to think differently without having to do a whole therapy session. You just literally just got them to think about it differently. And if they don't agree with that, okay, that's another red flag. Okay, they're not very coachable then, or they don't really care about accountability. So that maybe they're not even a good client anyways. So that's the first thing is number one, call it out. Ask, say, hey, listen, John, real quick, can I ask you an honest question? Yeah, what's going on? So it seems like you're just kind of looping, and I'm not judging, but you kind of keep saying the same things. We're not really getting anywhere. I mean, is that a pattern that you see that shows up in your life where you kind of get stuck or you kind of overanalyze or you just kind of loop? If they say yes, then you go into, okay, well, look, that's one thing we could actually do here as well. Let's put services aside in marketing, man. Think about it. If you have someone to sit down with, isn't that going to help you also show up differently and be more accountable? Right. And the second thing that I mentioned, aside from being able to just really call it out, is this notion of like getting them to understand, hey, what are going to be the consequences if nothing changes? So you can say, hey, so John, it sounds like you're in this place where you're kind of stuck, right? You're stuck in this situation. Let's get clear on something real quick. I'm curious, what happens if it's another month, another year, and you're still looping, you're still stuck in this situation and nothing changes? What would the consequence of that be? I mean, what would you miss out on if nothing changes? So you see, in both of those scenarios, the tonality also it matters so much. Because so if he's talking and talking and talking and talking, he's very high energy right there, or just like normal energy. What you need to do is bring the energy so down that it causes him to stop and think. Like even what I did there, I paused. Just don't say anything. Just like give like there's this space now to breathe. When you ask that question, just pause. Or when he says something and just like pause and be like, that's very interesting. That's just say two words, right? That or three. That's very interesting. What does that do? It creates space and then say, okay, can I ask you an honest question about that? So now you slow down and he will then naturally say, yeah, yeah, what's up? But then when you slow down, the tonality of the conversation, the energy shifts where it's a little bit more serious. Again, even that pause right there, right? You say something and then you pause and it just brings like now they're paying attention to what is he going to say next. Okay, so that's what I'll share with that, Ganesh. Let's see what's going on here in the chat.
That's brilliant answer there,
Yeah.
Luis. And we have a question here. Gurjit, if you want to come on camera and ask the question, that'll be perfect. If not, I can read it out. No problem.
No, it's
Um,
fine. I loved what you've been sharing, Lou, and especially point 3 about the enjoyment piece, because only in this past couple of weeks I've been getting that for myself. Just
Yeah.
start having fun, and you were just saying that when you're having fun, you attract more. And I
Right.
am finding that in the last few weeks of, there's more calls happening on the back
Yeah.
of just saying, I want to have fun. But that says, even when that's happening, I think there's this underlying current that's there for me when I think I've got an amazing hot lead and the conversation's
Mm,
going really well and they're in and you're checking in and going, are you in? And I'm in, and you're leveling up with them. And then
yeah.
right at the end, it's like, if they don't buy or they're not signing up, I get
Yeah.
left with, I've just given away a whole
Mm,
hour and a bit of my time, or even sometimes more. And then I go,
mm,
oh man, I'm not good at this, because people equate, you shouldn't be spending so much
mm,
time with them. You should know in the first half an hour, you should be asking this question. Sometimes
yeah.
it's not able to do that because like you said, you go straight into either slowing the conversation
Yes.
down or asking the questions, and the person wants to jump straight in and they're good to go as well. That you don't
Yeah.
sit there, might be, what do you do? Can you afford this program? You know, you don't kind of
Mhm.
do that. So yeah, is there a strategy for that? And then
100%.
I'll do
And
my second one afterwards.
okay, wonderful. No, thank you for showing up here today and for the question. So, yeah, I mean the big thing there is the operant word that you said was the word my, right? It's like I just wasted an hour of my time. I just did my thing, you know? And that's very natural. I felt the same way. I get it, right? Because it's like I have a wife, a son, I could be doing all these things. I could be out for a walk, whatever. But that's the whole notion of the first point is like if you are a leader and when you can step up as a leader, you understand that, hey, actually, they were there too for that whole hour and a half. Were they not? I mean, if they weren't, that's a big problem, right? They weren't present, etc. But anyway, so there's this notion that, you know, sales is about receiving and sales is about collecting money and sales is about yeah, closing, which it is true. Obviously, like that's what the term sales is. In closing, you bring close a transaction. But really, if you want to do it at the highest levels, you do it from the perspective of giving. That's the big shift. It's like, let me give an hour of my time to this person. What does that do outside of business and sales? Now, if you want to bring the word karma in, now you're generating, I get chills thinking about it. Now you're generating good karma. Now you're like, let me talk to this person. Maybe they had a messed up week. Let me just hear them out. Maybe I have a good conversation with them and they can't do it. Okay, that's fine. Now I can nurture them. That's where someone like Ganesh come in and helping you with like how do you nurture somebody like that? Right? So the big thing is, are there tactics, things like that? There is, but more importantly is the mindset of how to approach, but also even something tangible is when you get off a sales call and it didn't go the way you expected. That's another word right there, expectations, right? We expect, like we want, right? It's normal. But the key there is going to be to say, okay, you want to really literally, so here's the thing, if you want to detach from those emotions, you literally have to detach from your workspace. What does that look like? What does that mean? In the age of working from home, that tends to be very difficult. We literally, this is my space, this is my home. So the thing I have to remind myself is get the heck out of the office, right? Or get out of your room, go for a walk, go cook, go read, go listen to music. Those are things I do. Because what does that do? It puts me, when I'm cooking, it puts me in a space of like focused on something different. When I'm reading, I'm learning. When I'm listening to music, I'm jamming out, having a good time. But we got to remember to do those things. And if you want to detach from the emotions, you got to detach from the workspace. So was that helpful? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I think you're right, because that's what I end up wanting to do straight away. Of going, oh, I don't want to stay like this. Let me go and do something else.
Yeah,
But it
that's
just
right.
plays on the mind. But like you said, maybe I'm not engaging the mind as well as doing something different. Okay.
That's it. Yeah. Because then you could be in a different location, but if your mind is still on the thing, then we're just ruminating, right?
Yeah. And the
So,
second, yeah, sorry. Yeah. And the
okay.
second thing was around when I get this, and I think you were talking about the male female dynamics there, and I tend to notice this more obviously working with women. But I get that
Yeah.
classic of I need to go away and think about it. I need to go and have a conversation with my husband. I often
Mm,
challenge them there and then. I say, okay, what can I do to help you think about it with you now? Because I'm sure the questions that you're asking yourself, I've got the answers and we can probably talk about it now.
hmm
Even down to the money conversation where I said, okay, let's look together and try and brainstorm how you're going to do this. And I
hmm
still sometimes get left with, thanks a lot, but I am going to go away and think about it. And then I don't obviously hear anything back, or I do. So yeah, how do I
hmm
manage that one?
Yeah. So there's a few different things there. The first one is the tonality. So you probably didn't notice, but go back, and I know this is being recorded. Like, listen to this piece and listen to the way you ask those questions. There's this underlying sense of impatience and like frustration.
Yeah.
You know,
There is.
because it's like, why do you need to think about it? What are you doing, right? Now we're what, judging them, or we're like internally like bugged and so bothered. So that's gonna come across in your tonality. So there's this framework created, whatever it's I use, and it's called the Hakuna Matata frame. And that comes from the Lion King, where their whole thing is it means no worries, right? It's like Hakuna Matata. The reason why you want to do that is because then the way you show up in the objection handling phase is going to be very different, right? And so, how do you manifest that? How do you go from like, oh gosh, why are they asking me that, to, hey, no problem? I use the language pattern, hey, no worries. Hey, no problem. Okay, gotcha, no problem at all. Even in the tonality, like, no worries, like, like that, like it doesn't really matter. Like, well, it's no problem at all. So, listen, Julie, I get that you want to go talk to your husband. I mean, I would probably do the same thing as well. I think that's something smart to do. I would be surprised if you actually didn't do that. Now you're kind of now their wall is way down because now you're aligned with them. Now they feel understood. Not only understood, they feel appreciated. Not only appreciated, but validated. When it comes to the feminine energy, that's what they need and want. They want to feel understood. They want to feel validated. Right? So if you're doing the opposite of like, okay, yeah, you could do that, but I mean, what do you need to think about? Or let's talk about it now. I mean, I have the information. So tell me, like, what do you need? That's gonna cause them to be like, yeah, I think I don't want to continue the conversation. So the big thing there is just be aware of tonality. The other thing was the Hakuna Matata frame. Just, hey, no problem. Hey, practice that in the mirror, right? For 1,000 times, and you're gonna get better at it. Yeah, no problem at all. Or okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. And then the third thing is just aligning with them. Say, okay, no problem. And even say, yeah, that makes sense. I think that's actually something intelligent to do because it sounds like you're, a very strategic woman. So let's get strategic here together. I mean, is it more so about the finances, or is it more so just kind of getting his thoughts on, this idea of whatever you help them with? You see? So you go right into it. You don't ask, hey, let's like work together on, like, do you want to work together on this? You literally just say, okay, like, no problem at all. That's very intelligent. You uplift them, you validate them, and then you get into the thing. By the way, when you say, hey, that's a smart idea, some people may be afraid that then it gives them the way out. It doesn't. Because in that conversation of, is it more this or more that, it could be that, well, no, actually, we had a conversation and he told me I could move forward with it. But yeah, I'm a little concerned about the price. Oh, okay, no problem at all. There it is again, right? Oh, okay, no worries. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the economy is not the best and things like that. So I can understand where you're coming from. But help me understand a little bit more. I mean, what specifically is kind of concerning you? Is it just the amount or the commitment? Anyways, you can go down like so many different things, right? It's just really getting clear on the mindset, and also like what is it that what is, like, what is the concern, getting very clear, understanding them. But the mindset and the way you show up is going to be the biggest determining factor on whether they'll stay on the call or whether they'll say, yeah, it's okay, like I just really need to talk about it.
Thank you, no problem.
Wonderful.
I just want
There
to add
you go.
that that was brilliant, Liz. I mean, it's like going deeper into like what their objection is. The real objection may be something else. They just want to get away from this conversation because they want to think about something, maybe finances, but they're just putting husband in their way, saying, "Hey, I need to go check with my
Yeah.
husband if the finances are okay." But actually, they might not even want to go talk to the husband. It's just that they do not want to say, hey, I don't know how to arrange the finances, for example. So I think it's bringing that safe space in and opening up the conversation to, hey, okay, no problem. What if your husband said yes? Would that be
Yeah.
a yes from you? Or I mean, I don't know if I'm putting it
Yeah.
the right way. Thinking it's just opening up the conversation, clearing the space, making it a safe space for them,
There you go.
and assuming that okay, whatever they wanted to go check was a positive. How would you feel, sort of a thing? So opening up that conversation may help as well. Yeah,
100%.
just
Yeah, 100%, because that would be towards the tail end of that conversation, because first you want to see, like, is it talking about sharing this with your husband, or is it something else? Typically it's something else most of the times, but you give them that space. But if it's like, no, I get it, I really like this idea, I just really need to run it by him. Okay, gotcha. So I'm curious, what does that dynamic look like? For me and my wife, typically when I go to her, and so now you share a little bit about you, or oh, typically what we see is that when that situation occurs, there tends to be some friction. But what's the dynamic like between you and your husband? Is it very supportive? So now you're like, you're just having a conversation and you're inputting some of your expertise that gets them to open up more. But let's say it's like, yeah, so if they say no, what would happen then? I mean, would you not be able to do it? So even in the tonality, again, it's the tonality is so important, because if it's like, oh, but if they say no, then you're not going to do it. And then they're going to feel like, okay, this person's like really just like trying to understand me, but not really. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody. We have Bo here as well saying, the pause makes it appear that you're truly listening, more so than any regular conversation. So yeah, that's what it is. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is just the way that you show up as a leader. So with that said, Ganesh, anything else, brother? If not, then it's been a great time here. Of course, reach out to Ganesh if you have any questions, reach out to me if there's anything I could do to serve you, and then we'll just kind of take it away.
brilliant. No, that was a great session, Luis. Really appreciate. So I've got some notes here. I'm just gonna read out the notes. I like to do this because a lot of people
Yeah.
get a lot out of just listening to the notes at the end, like the bullet points, right? So what
Yeah.
not to do was like, don't just focus on what I want. It's just about them initially, and then you don't have to be a hard closer. So just show up as a leader, and then ask some great questions. So that's all about sales, right? Asking great questions. Um, and then you showed emotional guidance scale, and then yeah, how can I accept the situation? How can I be content with the situation right at the beginning, right? So that eases it into the conversation,
Yeah.
detaching from the outcome of the sales, I guess. And then
Yeah.
focusing more on structure and framework is going to give us a lot of confidence. And then and the structure itself is a warm intro. Here's how setting the tone up. Here's how the call is going to go. Here's how much time it's going to take. And then getting into the groove, learn a little bit about the situation. And then at the end, I guess if I'm able to help, we'll talk about the services and everything. So it's like giving them an open. If I'm able to help, then
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you the options. Is that
Mhm.
fair? Asking those powerful questions, and then going into the deeper conversation. Tell me a bit more about yourself, your situation, and then yeah, yeah, and then how do you have more fun? Not just being in the scene, not judging, not criticizing,
Yeah.
showing up as a leader. So yeah, and again, recurring. If there are any like recurring looping sort of situation, the conversation is not going anywhere, it's all just bullshit from the other side, then feel free to call it out and get out of
Yes.
the loop. And then ask the powerful question, is that a pattern? So using that as a segue into getting them to agree, and then again, don't judge, and then also don't future pace it. What if nothing changes in like 5 years? What if nothing changes in a couple of years? How are you gonna feel? So that was really powerful. And then match the energy. Like if they are like talking, and then break them down. Use pause and silence as a way. So brilliant. Yeah, lots of bullet points there. So yeah, hope that was useful to everybody.
I love it. Yeah, and we have another
Fantastic.
one here. It says, the tonality. Yeah, I think that's the big piece. And it's really, I say it like that, right? But that's the little thing that will get the biggest results. But how does tonality come about? Naturally, tonality will stem from your mindset, your emotions, and your identity. Your mindset, your emotions, and your identity. So naturally, if we're not intentional about our tonality, we'll just kind of talk, and we're not really paying attention. But if you're like, wait, let me get my mindset right. Let me not judge this person. Let me show up to understand. Let's get our emotions right. Hey, let me show up with almost like this eagerness to want to learn about them. And so then what does that do? It puts you in an identity and a presence of that leadership, of that senior advisor, of that, you know, high council like type of embodiment, right? So that's the thing. So brilliant observation there, Avni. But with that said, everybody, it's been great connecting. Anything else, Ganesh? Anything else?
No, thank you very much. Really appreciate you making the time. We thoroughly enjoyed the session. Lots of cool nuggets. We would love to have you another time covering a slightly deeper subject, possibly. And fantastic. Thanks everybody for
Wonderful.
showing up as well. We would love to serve you more and more. Please keep showing up.
Thank you
Fantastic.
so much. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Bye bye.